Jeffery Epstein's associations with the ultra-rich cannot be understood as a mere catalogue of names, nor is a scandal reducible to individual moral failure. They must instead be read as a symptom of how contemporary power organizes itself, through networks, intermediaries, and gray zones of discretion that sit not at the edges of law, visibility, and accountability, but instead are through the looking glass, where when they break laws, which have always been a part of their business model, accountability doesn't apply to them. The term elite implies superiority, and Epstein was not simply connected to elites, who are most superior at one thing, dark sorcery. He was useful to them, and that usefulness explains the breadth and durability of his access. At the most basic factual level, Epstein moved comfortably among financiers, politicians, royalty, scientists, and cultural elites. This is not speculative. It is documented through flight logs, photographs, court records, financial ties, and the public acknowledgments of those who knew him. Yet the persistence of these associations, even after his 2008 conviction for sex offenses, demands an explanation that goes beyond individual judgment errors or social coincidence. What kind of social figure was Epstein that so many powerful people found tolerable, even desirable, to remain near? The answer lies in the role Epstein played within elite ecosystems, that of the intermediary. Elite power rarely operates directly. It prefers buffers, figures who arrange, connect, host, fund, and facilitate, while absorbing risk and opacity. Epstein presented himself as a financier of unusual discretion, someone who managed the wealth of the very wealthy, without publicity, regulation, or explanation. His financial persona was conspicuously vague, but vagueness itself is often a feature, not a flaw, in the upper reaches of capital. In environments where privacy is paramount and scrutiny is resented, opacity becomes a form of trust. Beyond money, Epstein functioned as a broker of access. He introduced academics to donors, politicians to financiers, royalty to American capital, and elites across national and institutional boundaries to one another. His homes, especially his Manhattan residence and private island, operated as semi-private salons, spaces that blurred the line between socializing, networking, and deal-making. Such spaces are not marginal to power. They are where power often feels most at ease, precisely because they are informal, unrecorded, and insulated from public oversight. What distinguished Epstein from more conventional social brokers was the degree to which his world existed in what might be called a zone of exception. Private aircraft, private islands, private security, and non-transparent financial structures together produced environments in which ordinary constraints, legal, ethical, reputational, were softened. For individuals accustomed to operating under constant visibility, these zones exert a powerful attraction. They promise freedom, not merely from surveillance, but from the need to explain oneself at all. It is here that the moral gravity of the Epstein case sharpens. Courts have established that Epstein ran a long-term sex trafficking operation involving minors, using grooming, coercion, and silence to sustain it. That fact stands independently of who else entered his orbit. What remains unresolved, and must be approached with restraint, is the extent to which others knew, ignored, suspected, or deliberately avoided knowing. To conflate proximity with guilt is unjust. To treat ignorance as morally neutral is equally unsatisfying. The deeper problem is structural. Epstein's continued acceptance after his first conviction reveals not simply individual failures of judgment, but broader elite tolerance for moral compartmentalization. Power has long relied on the ability to separate personal conduct from public function, ethics from utility. As long as Epstein remained valuable as a financier, connector, or host, his criminality could be minimized, rationalized, or quietly bracketed. Only when he became a liability did decisive action follow. His eventual prosecution and death in custody produced a paradoxical outcome, formal closure without substantive reckoning. Epstein was punished as an individual, but the networks that sustained him were not seriously interrogated. This is not anomalous. Modern systems of power are adept at sacrificing intermediaries while preserving the structures that made them possible. Scandal, in this sense, often functions less as a mechanism of reform than as a means of containment. To view Epstein as a singular monster is comforting but misleading. It allows society to externalize the problem, to imagine that evil entered the system from outside. A more unsettling interpretation is that Epstein emerged from within the logic of elite organization itself, from secrecy, concentrated wealth, weak oversight, and the normalization of extraterritorial privilege. He was not an aberration, in spite of the system, but a product of it. In the end, Epstein's associations with the ultra-rich and powerful tell us less about hidden cabals than about visible structures we prefer not to examine. They reveal how access is traded, how discretion is valued, how accountability thins as one ascends, and how easily moral catastrophe can coexist with social prestige. If there is a lesson to be drawn, it is not about individual names, but about the conditions under which certain figures become indispensable, and therefore untouchable, until they are no longer useful. Epstein was not outside power, he was one of its mirrors. A reflection that shows the rest of us, that elites are really some of the least ethical, most criminal people.